Today we're talking about the 12 books that actually changed my life. These are the books that I desperately wish that someone had handed me 10 years ago. So if you're watching this today, consider this your cheat code. But here's the thing, if you're just looking for quick hacks and feel-good quotes, then this video probably isn't for you. Because these books go deeper. If you read them, like really read them and apply what they say, they'll rewire your psychology, reshape your worldview, and redefine what you believe is possible. And to be honest, I think I learned more and I've applied and grown more from reading these books than I did my entire college education, which is crazy to think about. So if you want a crash course in building a life that actually means something, this is the list that I wish someone had given to me. The first book is a classic, which I'm sure you've heard of, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. There's one quality one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants and a burning desire to possess it. Set your mind on a definite goal and observe how quickly the world stands aside to let you pass. So I read this book one summer in college, and it was the first time I truly believed that I could achieve the goals that I once felt were out of reach. This book doesn't give you a step-by-step formula per se. There are passages where he does give specific steps, but the real benefit of this book is that it gives you the mindset that's required to achieve success in whatever it is you want. And some people dismiss it as too abstract or woo-woo, but here's what I've come to realize, is that everything extraordinary in life starts with a thought. And mastering your mind is the first step to mastering your life. This book planted that seed in my mind, and that seed changed everything. So the next book is called Outwitting the Devil, which I do not have a physical copy of right now because I let my friend borrow it, but that is the second book on the list which completely changed my life. Children grow up, but they do not always learn to think for themselves. Once I capture the mind of a child through fear, I weaken that child's ability to reason and think for himself, and that weakness goes with him all through life. This is another Napoleon Hill book, but it's slightly different from Think and Grow Rich because it cuts straight to the reason why most people stay stuck in life, and it forced me to face uncomfortable patterns that I had been avoiding. Drifting is the process through which I take over a human being's mind and control it. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced by circumstances outside of his own mind. He does not choose his thoughts or decisions deliberately. Instead, he lets the winds of life push him around. It introduced me to the concept of drifting, something I talk about in another video, and it completely reframed how I saw my own indecision. It exposes the reason why most people stay stuck in life, which is because they never learn to think for themselves and they react to life rather than directing it. Reading this book forced me to get honest with myself about how much time I had wasted going through life with no clear direction. It was the first time in my life that I realized that if I didn't create a definite aim and pursue it with urgency, then I'd end up like most people, drifting through life only to wake up one day and realize that I'd wasted it. So the third book is The Way of the Superior Man by Diewithzero. In any given moment, a man's growth is optimized if he leans just beyond his edge, his capacity, his fear. He should not be too lazy, happily stagnating in the zone of comfort and security, nor should he push far beyond his edge, stressing himself unnecessarily, unable to metabolize his experience. He should lean just slightly beyond the edge of fear and discomfort, constantly, in everything he does. This book is packed with insights like this and is one of the few books I found that speaks to the internal tension of being a man in today's world. It talks about purpose, relationships, emotional mastery, and spiritual growth, and how to navigate all of these arenas of life with integrity. And what I like about this book is that it's practical. So if you're a man that's trying to live with integrity and depth and intentionality, then this book gives you the frameworks to navigate that path. The next book is a classic, one of my favorite books, maybe because we share the same name, Timothy, 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. The ability to choose is real power. This book is about how to see and create these options with the least effort and cost. It just so happens, paradoxically, that you can make more money, a lot more money, by doing half of what you're doing right now. I read The 4-Hour Work Week after graduating college while working my first 9-to-5 job, and it was my first real introduction to the world of entrepreneurship. And sure, around this time I had seen the YouTube videos and the online gurus, the Tai Lopez's of the world, talking about passive income and online businesses, but reading this book felt different. It wasn't just fluff, it was principles. For the first time, someone showed me a legitimate worldview that challenged everything that I thought was possible. It completely broke my frame, and I realized that I didn't want to live a traditional life. I wanted something more exciting, more free, and more intentional. And this book made me believe that that was actually possible if I was willing to take a different path, a path that most people are too afraid or even too unaware of to walk. So next book is a classic, which I'm sure you've heard of before and probably have already read, which is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. The rich don't work for money, they make money work for them. In less than 3 years, I was making more in my real estate holding corporation than I was making at Xerox. And the money I was making in my asset column in my own corporation was making money for me. My rich dad's advice made more sense. Soon, the cash flow from my properties was so strong that my company bought me my first Porsche. Before reading this book, to be honest, I didn't know what an asset really was. It completely reframed how I understood wealth and helped me see the differences between how the poor, middle, and upper class think about money. And while I would argue that this book kind of makes the journey of accumulating wealth seem deceptively easy, I will say that the philosophy is powerful. Don't just earn money, build systems, accumulate assets, and buy back your freedom. Relating to this book, which I think a lot of people sleep on and don't follow up with, is Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrants, also by Robert Kiyosaki. Because I had two dads with differing attitudes on education, I became aware that there is more than one type of education. Traditional schools are for those who want to be successful in the employees and small business quadrants. Another type of education is for those who want to be successful in the business and investor quadrants. What I like about this book is that it builds off of the concepts in Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it takes it a step further. While the first book opened my eyes to financial literacy, this book gave me a structured framework for how wealth is actually built. It also breaks down the 4 types of earners, which are employees, the self-employed, business owners, and investors. And it helps you identify which quadrant you're currently in and which one you need to be in or want to be in if you want to achieve financial freedom. It showed me that true wealth isn't about working harder. It's about moving into the right quadrant and letting your money and systems work for you. The next book is one of my personal favorites, and it's a lesser known book because it's by actually one of the YouTubers I used to watch back in the day. It's called Mastertheday by Alexander Haney. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Alexander Hain or Haney. The antidote is deliberate living. It's waking up and thinking, what do I really want from my life? How do I actually want to look and feel every single day? It's taking the time to be deliberate in thought and action about what you want and how you can get there. To escape living an average life or average health, we need to stop living like the average person. Of all the principles that have helped me the most in life, it's this. Want to avoid average anything? Look at what most people you know do every day in that specific aspect of their lives and make sure your routine looks different. I read this book when I first started my fitness journey, and I can honestly say that it changed my life. When I read this book at the time, I was burning out and I didn't know if I could keep going. I was getting to the point where I wasn't sure if fitness was something that I could sustain long term. But this book slowed me down and it reminded me that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And also gave me a practical, sustainable mindset that I've been able to stick with ever since. One line I'll never forget is that he casually mentioned that he had had a six-pack for the last 10 years. And that hit me because up until that point, I didn't even realize that was possible. But through a lot of the habits and principles and the mindset that he's able to convey through this book, I've been also able to do the same. And the biggest lesson I've learned is that it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. That's how you master the day and eventually master your life. Okay, so the next book is The Millionairefastlane by MJ DeMarco. During my Fastlane journey, I was constantly searching for the absolute infallible formula that would lead to wealth. What I found instead were ambiguous and subjective imperatives like be determined, persistence pays, or is not what you know, but who you know. While these sound bites offered some value, they didn't guarantee wealth. A workable formula is a mathematical construct, something concrete, not flimsy platitudes. So, does wealth have a formula? A code you can exploit to tilt the odds in your favor? Yes, and the Fastlane quantifies it. This book for me was just straight up inspirational. I read it after multiple online failures at a point where I felt stuck, like my dreams weren't going to be attainable. But this book just lit that spark again in me and gave me the inspiration I needed to try again. And similar to the 4-hour work week, it challenges the traditional script that we're all chose to follow and presents a completely different worldview. So if you're feeling stuck, like your goals and dreams are out of reach or that you've lost momentum, I highly suggest that you check out this book. It reminded me that the dream is still alive. You might just need a better vehicle. Next on the list, we have a classic, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. If you want others to like you, if you want to develop real friendships, if you want to help others at the same time as you help yourself, keep this principle in mind. Become genuinely interested in other people. This book, like I said, is a classic and is one that I think everyone should read. This book is very practical, and if I'm being honest, it is a little bit repetitive, so I think you can get the main idea within the first couple of chapters. That being said, I still think it is worth your time to go through, because that doesn't take away from how powerful it is. Reading this book helped me become more outgoing, more social, and honestly just more human in how I relate with other people. It taught me that influence isn't about being impressive, it's about being interested. That simple shift completely changed how I show up in conversations and in relationships. Next book on the list is Don't Believe Everything You Think. What we hold on to perpetuates our reality. What we let go of creates new possibilities. So this is actually a new book that I just got that I'm still working through, but even just halfway through, this book has already had a very profound impact on me. As someone who is a chronic overthinker, this book helped me realize something very profound, which is that it's not life that's making me suffer, but rather my thinking about life. I spend so much time trying to analyze everything and figure things out, why things happen, why I feel certain things. And what I realize is that a lot of this thinking is just creating unnecessary pain. One of the biggest mindset shifts that this book gave me is recognizing the difference between a thought and thinking. A thought might just appear, but thinking, the rumination, the stories, the spirals, that's what keeps us stuck. And recognizing that simple truth has allowed me to become more present, more calm, and free from the patterns that used to hijack my peace. Next book that completely changed my life is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. The ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare at the exact time it's becoming increasingly valuable in our economy. As a consequence, the few who cultivate this skill and then make it the core of their working life thrive. This book actually inspired one of the first YouTube videos that I ever made. And this book caught my attention because it was at a time where my attention span was completely shot and I couldn't focus on anything for longer than 10 minutes. And I realized that if I was ever going to create something meaningful that had impact, that something had to change. In a world of people addicted to TikTok and Instagram Reels, deep focus is actually becoming a superpower. This book forced me to face that and realize that most people are consumers, not producers. And I noticed that if I wanted to build a meaningful life, that I had to change that for myself. The final book, which is another book that I don't have a physical copy of, but I read on my phone, is called Diewithzero by Bill Perkins. The goal is to die with zero, to spend your money on experiences that create memories, rather than letting your wealth go to waste by delaying gratification until it's too late. This book introduced me to a concept that I hadn't seriously considered, which is that money is a tool, not something to be hoarded. He makes the argument that rather than dying with huge bank account balances, we should aim to die with zero, having used the money to create meaningful experiences, relationships, and memories. One idea that really stuck out to me was the concept of time windows. For example, some experiences like traveling have a window when they're most impactful. And if you wait too long, you might miss out entirely or enjoy them less. So rather than delaying life, this book challenges us to spend strategically and live fully while we can. Each of these books helped me see myself and the world differently. But here's the thing, reading them alone won't change your life. Some of the ideas are powerful enough to shift your mindset instantly, but unless you act on them, they're just words on a page. Because most people read for inspiration but never actually follow through. And that's the gap between dreaming and doing. These books are just the beginning. Keep exploring, add your own to the list, and let them expand your worldview. But my challenge to you is don't just highlight the quotes, live them, because that's where everything changes. If you guys have any other good book suggestions, please drop them down in the comments. I'm always trying to learn more, so drop them down in the comments so I can read them and everyone else can read them. And I will see you guys in the next video. But until then, you already know, don't drift. Behind this, Jesus.